Hello guys, welcome back to Balance War, and today we will take a look at the new Saga supplement, the Age of Chivalry, in, we could say, context of Hussites War, because me, with my buddy Jakub, we want to, start Hussite Wars wargaming this year, and we were thinking about, using the Saga Age of Chivalry book, because, well, we've been playing a lot of Saga in the past year, which you are my viewer on YouTube or, you know, the picture social media, you probably realize that I posted really lots of Dark Age stuff. Last year, I think I played something like 25 games of Saga, which is not absurd number of games, but well, it's not really a small one. So I was really sort of hype for Age of Chivalry because I think it's great with the Saga system that you will learn one rule set, the Saga core book, and then you can play anything for which are the supplements for. Which means now in Saga you can play basically from antiquity to late medieval. If it, in theory, if the supplements works, and to be honest, I'm not really bad on the Age of Chivalry. So let's together take a look at the book itself, and time will show if it's good book. So in this book, you get lots of new factions. You get English and French for the Hundred Year Wars. You get three companies: Burgundians, Scottish, Flemish, Breton, Castilians, Swiss, Germans, Hussites, Condottieri, and War of Roses. It's just sort of weird, how to name the faction, but here we are. What's the interesting is that you have the factions, you get the specialists, which is sort of word for the old school mercenaries, which is interesting for, we could say, the Age of Chivalry book. There is the classic table of which mercenaries can be used by which faction is gone. Now everybody can use any mercenaries, which means, for example, the Hussites, if they want, they can field English longbowmen with Genosis crossbowmen and support them with Swiss pikemen, which for me is sort of weird. But I understand, I could say designer's choice why they did it, because sometimes in the previous editions or previous supplements book there were some sorts of mercenaries you were thinking like, well, why these mercenaries can be used even by these factions. I think there is some sort of historical precedent that can use them, which was sometimes super weird in scale of Saga being 40 guys bashing 40 guys in some sort of village, woods, river crossing, not some like large grand scale battles. And why I couldn't be there is 5 guys from the mercenaries list, which is gone in the Age of Chivalry. It could lead to some odd choices, as like I said in previously in the Hussites, fieldings with pikesmen, with Genesis crossbowmen, and with English longbowmen, which is super weird. Now by the rules it's 100% doable, but again, nobody forces you to play unhistorical army list. If you want to field them, you can use them, and you can even some sort of use them in the old school Warhammer 40k special exercise that you are fielding the English low moments profile, but you are using them for your local huntsmen, super bowmen, which is viable. So, after all, why not? Even I see some issues in the, you could say, competitive playing that after a couple of weeks there will be probably some sort of winners from the mercenaries, which are must have, and you can probably see them a lot if you are in this sort of competitive playground. But let's move on. And against after specialists, there is the Legends of Chivalry, which are the classic legendary characters. For whatever reason, I'm not really sure why they are not listed in the factions itself. themselves. But now they are on the end of the book. There is just huge list of different characters, which are anyway tied to their respective factions. So I'm not really sure why Jan Žižka is at the end of the books with 20, 30 other characters, not instead listed in the Hussite sections. Again, that's some sort of weird design choice. I'm not really sure why, because there is, for me, no logical explanation. It is this way. So, what's sort of, again, interesting designer choice is that, in my opinion, like in any saga books, you got some sort of, sage who explain the rules for you. Now, in Age of Chivalry, is this Herald of Arms, Mr. Hope, and in my opinion, I will put the picture here. I think that here the Mr. Hope is AI generated image. Because if you look at the details on the stuff on his chest, on the details of the embroids and stuff like that, in my opinion, this is AI art. Which for me is sort of, well, sort of, a letdown because I don't really think that we should see AI arts in, you know, books so expensive and for so popular franchise. It's insane for me. I understand that if you are some sort of super indie one guy publisher who makes this rule, if you use I understand it because, well, basically you are without budget. I don't really think that Studio Tomahawk, which I think releases books with cooperation with Gripping Beast, are companies which couldn't afford £20 for one guy to make them some artwork for it for the book because there are lots of artworks and basically if they sell two books they will get the fee for the illustrator back for the one picture. And in my opinion, here Mr. Hope is really just AI generated picture, and that's sort of red flag. Other thing is that if you read through the book, you will see that there are again lots of typos and stuff like that. Some sort of weird sentences which you can clearly see that they were translated from the French, and nobody proofread them, which is not really cool. And to be honest, the book sort of feels little like a cash grab, which wasn't really actually proofreaded or nobody take his time to read it. And to be honest, I think that's true for lots of saga books. Just the first Age of Viking books was, we could say polished without typos and stuff like that. But since the Age of Crusades, you can clearly see that there was, they were in a hurry, and it's sort of shame that they are still in a hurry. Something like, I'm not really sure, 5+ years after the release of the second edition, 6 years. Jesus, the second edition I think is it's for some time here. So again, you open the book and you will see a high picture, and then you see lots of typos. Not really cool, Studio Tomahawk. Not really cool. So let's take a look at we could say couple of two new things in the books or free, and that we got new equipment which is universal for most of the factions. We got barding, pavises, and pikes. Barding is and pavises are basically, we could say, rebrand from the old books where you have some sort of units which were heavy armored and they have bonuses for shooting or terrain and they were slower. Now in Age of Chivalry, it's basically universal equipment which can be bought by a couple of units for some points. So barding, you will buy it for 1 point for your horse with your mounted troops. If you have barded horse, you your armor isn't reduced for shooting, but your movement is just M, but you skill L charge. If you played previous editions, you know this rule. That's basically Western Knights or Byzantine Cataphracts. They all have these sort of rules that they are still armor 5 for shooting, but they are half there with halved movement. So now it's basically universal upgrade for your knights. And on the same principle work with Pavises, you can equip it for some of your units, and they are always in light cover in shooting. Just their charge movement is reduced to S. So sort of Flemish mercenaries from Age of Vikings, or you could say, well, more Flemish mercenaries from Wish, but why not? And there are also pikes, which sort of I think work the same like the pikes in Age of. I think it was Age of Alexander book and the previous antique book. I'm not really sure. It was all in Alexander. Doesn't really matter. But you have sort of free shooting attack that you stop people with the pikes. Well, why not? And if we are talking about equipments, heavy weapons, or we could say two-handed weapons, which were in the previous supplements are now gone because with the invention of the blade armor, heavy harnesses, the armor is so good that there is basically no distinction with or without heavy weapons. That's what you know what the author said. And again, I understand their design decision. Not really sure if it would be really that issue to still have heavy weapons in the game. But if they decide to, take it off, well, why not? Again, why not? At least you don't really need to, really think about what your units have in their hands, because now even heavy weapons and basic swords are now the same. Why not? Why not? So these are, we could say the basic rules for the Age of Chivalry, new rules. And let's take a look at the Germans and the Hussites. Because as I said, I want to take a look at the possibilities of Hussites first. What sort of bugs me off is that the Holy Roman Empire, which is, now called the Germans, is called the Germans. Because Holy Roman Empire at this point wasn't really a full German state. And I sort of feel left out because no history of the Holy Roman Empire. At this time, we could say the most powerful entity inside the Holy Roman Empire was the Kingdom of Bohemia, and Kingdom of Bohemia wasn't a German kingdom inside the German Holy Roman Empire, so it's sort of not really good in my opinion to label it all as Germans. Is like having you know Second World War game, and instead of United Kingdom on British, you'd label United Kingdom faction as the Englishmen, and then you will get all special rules or everything inside would be called English, and then you will get some sort of I don't know Scottish special character, and he will be Englishman. I think the Scots or even Englishmen would be sort of pissed if it is happens, but they decided it doesn't really matter with the whole Roman Empire. But again, that's basically some sort of my I don't know local patriotism. Not really sure, but it's sort of weird from the Studio Tomahawk, in my opinion, to label Holy Roman Empire just as Germans, even in this period, which is for 14th, 15th century, which is not really true at the time. sort of my rant. So let's take a look at you know units. You have Warlord, which can be mounted. If mounted, he can be with barded horse. You can have herd guards, which again can be mounted, can be barding. Then you have warriors. Again, they could be barded. They could be without any special weapons. And if you want up to one unit, can be equipped with pavises. And then you got levies equipped with crossbows. Not really sure why they are not really, crossbow are warriors. Not that, the crossbow levies wasn't, every time better option, but doesn't really matter. But as you can see for Germans, you can get both head guards and warriors, basic infantry units, basic and both mounted and with the warriors on foot you can get them even pavises on hergas you get barded horses. But it's nice that you can, so you can both, if you want, you can field both your warlord and her guards, on foot. To be honest, with barded horses, I'm not really sure if there is, some sort of value for the foot slogging warlord and her guards, because in the previous saga you get sort of protection against shooting, and with the classic her guard, you on lots of factions you can get two-handed weapons, which is now gone. But nice is there is this option, and it's basically what you would expect from you know from the factions to have. You have knights both mounted and on foot, crossbow levies, warriors. Obviously, is basically what would you expect it to see. No issues there so far. But when we take a look at the battle board, it's not really, I would say, something sort of interesting to play on the first side. First thing is that they are basically and all battle boards they are just two-thirds of abilities you are used from the previous books. So that's again sort of let down, and again it sort of looks like that Studio Tomahawk wasn't really even trying anymore and just wanted to sell you a new book, which is sort of. So let's take a look at the abilities. I will call them basic, rare, and sixes, so we know what I'm talking about. So we start with Clash of Broadswords in melee. It's basic and rare, basic or rare die. If the enemy unit has at least one fatigue, gains 3 attack dice. Otherwise, gain 3 defense dice. Interesting ability for one basic die. Good. Mordhau, melee. Remove fatigue from the enemy units to add 3 automatic hits to the hits you inflict. And again, basic ability. Still good. Easy. Close formation. Basic and rare. Inflict fatigue on the enemy unit. You can use fatigue before the end of this melee. Why not? Could be, good in some sort of situations. Righteous Knight. It's basic and 6. Melee or shooting reaction, hero or headguard. Remove a fatigue from the enemy unit to make it discard 5 attack dice. 8 dice if you use 6. This could be really good ability to use situationally. Verboten, Orders reaction, basic or rare. Until end of turn, the first rest activation by each non-exhausted enemy unit within M of your warlord is cancelled. Again, could be situational. I see it. Rallying Cry, that's for rare. Orders reaction. Remove 1 fatigue from the enemy unit, then up to 3 non-mercenary friendly units may remove 1 fatigue each. Again, really straightforward. Can be good in some situations. Hard Man and Bolt. Rare. Orders reaction. Choose friendly non-mercenary unit of herd gods or warriors. Until end of the turn, its armor is increased by 1, but its aggression is halved. Can be situational, not really that good on first sight for me, but you know. Retreat on sixes. Melee unit other than levies. The melee ends immediately. Your unit must withdraw. That could be potentially a really great ability because your enemy could, charge you with super buffed up a unit, and you just, say, well, next time, man, and sort of, retreat. I can see it as super good drawing ability with lots of potential. Squadron, you need two basic abilities or two basic die to activate it, and activate units for charge with range of S. And if mounted, during the ensuing melee, the unit gains 3 defense dice and resilience 1. Again, in great situation, this could be devastating ability. And for the ward, you need to rare die activation. Activate as many units with L of your warlord as you like. Each of these units must resolve different type of activations. When these activations are resolved, inflict fatigue on one enemy unit within M of your warlord. Again, this could be really great, even if you use it for just one unit, because you get, to sort of not really free activations, but you get the fatigue on the enemy. You can, activate one of your units to res, one of your units to shoot, one of your units to charge, one of your units to move. I see lots of good, lots of potential here. And that's it. That's all the activations. So in my opinion, Germans will be sort of strong, or not really bad on the first side, because there are lots of cool abilities which buff your, armor, you buff your attacks, you sort of, take attacks off of your enemy, and there's some sort of, fatigue distribution. Germans on the first side, they seems that they're really not bad factions, but in my opinion, they on the first time they seem sort of dull because you saw the you not really saw you, but you heard the abilities is basically just you are charging somewhere, and then you are just getting extra dices or bonuses and take the dices of your enemy. It will not be some sort of I would say some sort of thinking power play with them. On the first side, they seems to be something like the Crusaders from the Age of Crusades books or the Vikings from the Vikings books. So straightforward factions in my opinion. But what is interesting is the one of the two factions in the Age of Chivalry book with 3 stars for difficulty. So for whatever reason, they seems to be really difficult to play in the Studio Tomahawk guys. But we will see in the future how they will, play up in the game. Because again, the book came, I think, in Friday, so I don't really have a time to, make a couple of games to, see how they play. So let's take a look at the Hussites. For my mental health, I'm not really for sure. I'm not really reading the background historical information because I don't really trust Tomahawk on this issue to be sort of good. So factions rules. So your warlord can be mounted or on foot. Not really sure why he can take a barding because even Hussite warlord can be barded or his horse can be barded. There are lots of powerful nobles in the Hussite war which could for sure afford barded horses. And your head guard again could be on foot or mounted, but again without barding. Which not really sure why. Some sort of design option. At least they are. At least they are the head guards. and mounted handguards, you can feel the actual knights for the Hussites, and there is not this, public opinion that it was some sort of just peasant armies with the forks, which was sort of, propagated during the later half of the 20th century, because Communist Party in the Czechoslovakia, they are sort of really loved the idea of the first communist revolution in the world happened in the 15th century Bohemia, and tried really hard to paint the Hussites as super proto medieval communist, when in the actual sense they are basically just the Catholic version of the Islamic State in the medieval. So there was really, even um, in the scholarly books and the university debate, there was consensus that the Hussites were basically just the popular uprising of proletariat. So it's either they are at least the knights in the Hussites army books, and not just warriors and levies. Even I'm not really sure why the horses can take the bargaining. Well, whatever. Let's go. Warriors, pavises, or just on foot. Again, not really sure what there is like with the Germans, why there is not an option for crossbowmen warriors. Here we are. And levies again with the close combat weapons or crossbowmen. There are no handgunners, because, or even the artillery, because as I said at the beginning, they are the specialist, mercenaries, like, which are for everybody. So if you want handgunners or artillery, you need to take the mercenaries. Again, I sort of understand their choice. Not really sure why the Hussites don't have any sort of legendary units for them with super handgunners, because they were forebears of using the firearms. Again, word pistol is from Czech, because at this time Hussites were using pistolas, which etymologically came to the pistols. If you give there the sidestep with the German, which st read as sh, you will get clearly from the you get pistolas in Czech, you get pistols in German, and you get the English pistol. Again, the word howitzer is from the Czech houfnice, howitzer. That's super easy to understand. I think even one of the abilities in the Hussite battle board is called houfnice. So it's sort of shame there isn't really sort of super shooty unit for the Hussites, but again, that's some sort of designer's choice for the Age of Chivalry. But you get at least special unit for Hussite Wagon, which is you generate one Saga dice. It has armor 5 or 4 for shooting, aggression 4, both shooting and close combat, and it's equipped with hegbutts, which means that it has armor 5 in melee and 4 against shooting, and it's equipped with range weapon that follow the following rules. The range of shooting attack is L, which is pretty nice. You see, the wagon can never be activated to shoot twice in a row in the same turn. It must resolve another type of activation, so cancel activation doesn't count before being able to activate to shoot again. Understandable not to turn it into super shooting platform. If the target of the wagon shooting attack isn't exhausted, the first uncancelled hit inflicts fatigue on the target unit instead of casualty. The usual rules apply to any further casualties. Defending unit suffers -1 penalty to its defense dice. Pretty nice. And there is cumbersome construction. Hussite wagon movement distance is S and can never be activated to charge. Again, sort of understandable, because when the Hussite wagons were fielded for battle, they were sort of, 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 they were fielded really as non-moving obstacle or mini fortress or stuff like that. Not really sure why there is the movement of S really, because in reality there wouldn't be really moving with them. Only way to move them would be to tow them by the soldiers themselves, and they're usually sort of dug in, so they're the enemy could flip them. They were you know there were stakes around. They were sometimes chained up with chains or stuff like that. So not really sure why there is even the S movement, but why not? In addition, it counts as uneven and dangerous terrain. Yeah, or it for the wagon it counts all uneven as dangerous as impossible, so that it can go to any terrain features. It can never close ranks and benefit from any kind of cover. Not really sure. Since the model is require a particular long base, Hussite wagon is subjected to some additional concern when they activate it move. During the move activation, yeah, you there is some rules for pivoting. You can never cross impossible terrain, even meaning friendly and enemy units at any points of the pivot. But the pivot can never takes into account the distance in the wagon can move. Interesting choice. And then it can never charge. And there is also another special rule firing platform. Hussite wagon shooting activation don't generate fatigue. However, if Hussite wagon is activated to move, the range of the shooting attack is reduced to M until end of the turn. Again, not really sure why there is so much rules for the moving and what's the meaning behind it. Whatever. But it seems like interesting choice to field. It costs 1 Saga point and counts as 12 levies when calculating his victory points. And you can spend up to half of your Saga points. So in the 6 point game, you can bring 3 of them, which is interesting. To be honest, I can really see Saga list with something like 2 wagons, couple infantry for it, some knights, or with Yanishishka. I can really see them work. And again, there are one legendary unit Taborites, which is a levy unit with armor of 3. However, it can be activated as herd guards, and once during that time they can be activated for free charge. Again, I understand that they want to put in some sort of special unit, and they choose to bring in the Taborites and make them some sort of berserker like something. Why not? Actually, why not? I don't really see them as super usable, but it's free upgrade for your levies, so why not? So that was the Hussites army list, and if we take a look at the battle boards. So first thing which sort of bugs me off is that the Czech names for the units is Kušníci for the levies, which Kuše meaning crossbow, so Kušníci is crossbowman. You can get 3 types of levies, just one of them is crossbow, so name it Kušníci. Is like, I understand it, but again, it's just Czech word for crossbow, so it's like taking French and have their levies named crossbowmen in French, so le crossbowless, probably. But okay, bojovníci for warriors is okay, because bojovník in Czech is sort of fighter. So on in, even we could say this in the sense of the medieval era, it could even be translated as the warrior. So that's great. What sort of bugs me up is that the herd guards are named hetmans, because the hetman, or back in the time, was sort of military rank. We could call it something like colonel in English. Not really sure if the word was used in the medieval England, but get it. If you are in the more like early modern period, you will know the word hetman, probably from the Polish, Lithuanian, Commonwealth like stuff, because hetman is, you could say, universal Western Slavic word, and even Poland was using it, and it's basically word for high-ranking military commander. So having your mounted herd guards, or not mounted herd guards, so basically really basic knights in the game called the hetmans, it's sort of it's not really working. Jan Žižka was a hetman himself. You know, Jan Žižka was a hetman, and now they are basically taking all herd guards as hetman. It's not really. It feels really off, and again, it's sort of like that Studio Tomahawk was like, how we name it? I don't know, Pierre. Let's take a look at the 30 seconds googling and see how we call it. Oh, Hitman, yeah, that's good. Oh, great, Pierre. Again, it was something which could take, I don't know, 5 minutes of research, or even shockingly asking community about for help. Because, for example, when Nevermind the Bellhooks was released, they have Hussites factions inside also. And well, they contacted two of my friends who are Czech medieval wargamers, and they basically sort of asked them about some details for the Hussites. So they sort of asked the Czechs about how to make the Czech factions, so there are not really, I won't say mistakes or shit like that with the Hussites, like in Saga, because again, Hetmans for Hedgard is really a shitty name. And after all, they could use. There's a lot of great words they could use. Even for the most basic, they could use Ritter, which is knight. But again, it sort of sounds like the German writer, so not really sure. And what's really fucking bugged me off is Hetmans. With so they take a single hetman and put the English S for plural, because in actual Czech it would be hetmani for plural. They just put the English S, and from hetman make a hetmans. Doesn't really make sense. Sort of piss me off. And bojovníci and kušníci are both in plurals. They didn't take bojovník, which is singular, and make bojovník s, and kuša rs, but they actually in the plural way. But for whatever reason, Google Translate didn't translate Hateman into Hatemani, but take it the Hatemans. Sorry, that was my 5 minute of linguistic rage, but I have to, take it off. So let's take a look at the abilities. I really like that they didn't even try, and for Hussite Wagon's ability is called just like in the German chronicles, Wagenburg. They don't even try to make the Czech word for it because it exists. It's Vozová hradba. Basically, it's the same translation as the Wagenburg. They're not really sure why they didn't leave it in English, because you can see that Studio Tomac for most of the abilities they try to they use English, or we could say native tongue for the factions. Here they choose to use the German word. It's sort of I'm sure that it's not sort of insult from their side, but it's again it shows sort of lacks of understanding of, I would say, the period or issue or problem, the faction itself. And again, it's you can you see that the book was really pushed for release, and there was not really some sort of good proofreading. Not I'm not really sure if there wasn't really proofreading, but for I'm sure that wasn't really a good proofreading. But again, I saw Armies of Germany 4th edition and 4th edition rulebook for bold action. So even a way bigger historical wargames companies, they basically doesn't don't give a shit about proofreading anymore. So Wagenburg, two basic dice. You roll this reaction, choose a wagon. Until end of the turn, all your non-mercenary units without range weapons within VS of the wagon increase the armor by 1. I think that's great. Sort of, in flavor that they are, hiding behind the wagon. Again, not really sure why it's for units without range weapons, so you can, you really buff your crossbowmen, which would be, shooting behind the wagons in your imaginations. It's not there. Not really sure why. Whatever. Sortie, rare or 6, activation. Activate 4 food unit within S of wagon for charge. Measure the charge distance from any point on the wagon if you use. 6. Your unit gains 3 bonus defense dice during the ensuring melee. Which is sort of great. It's named Sortie. You put your, probably, for example, your mounted knights behind wagon, and then you get some extra charge points because you will charge from any point of the wagon. And they are also, behind the wagon, so the enemy can, charge your units, which are, waiting for the counter attack. Again, that's really nice, and it's sort of working. It's in flavor. So far, so good. Religious Zeal. Basic, plus rare, melee. Reroll all your attack dice which don't score hit. That's powerful. Again, 2 dice. Basic plus rare. You need to allocate sort of, third of your resources for it. But again, rerolling all your hits could be devastating in the right, right time. Good. Burning Fate, basic, orders or orders reaction. Remove fatigue from friendly non-mercenary unit. Again, why not? And it's in a sort of, the flavor of the Hussites being, Islamic State of the Catholic Europe. Circled wagons, which, circled wagons is basically, in terms, it's basically meaning the Wagenburg, which is the first activation. Doesn't matter. Circular Wagons, activation reaction, basic plus rare. Trigger this ability when the enemy unit activates to shoot or charge before the activation is resolved. If possible, the enemy unit must target a wagon with their charge or shooting attack. Could be powerful. Minimally, it's strong for the opponent. Again, it's in the some sort of flavor with Hussites, and I can really see the Warband, fielding two wagons, some units, around them, and then you can do these shenanigans with the abilities, and it's both. I think it could be fun, and also historically, accurate that the Hussites would be, fighting around the wagons, which they will use as firing platforms, and some, static defenses for their, defending in close combat. I think it's working, and it looks pretty nice and historically accurate and fun to play. Not really like the Germans, which seems really, not really entertaining for me on the first sight, which is sort of shame because I will be playing the anti-Hussites and my friend will be playing the Hussite, so I'm stuck with the not really fun faction to play on the first sight. We will see. Let's continue with the Hussites. Convoy, which is sort of shame, is English with C and U at the end because the Czech word for convoy is convoy, but with K and J at the end. So there is this really so huge missed opportunity to naming it in Czech, which would be resolved if even one Czech person see the battle board before release. So let's take back to the convoy. It's basic or 6 die. It's activation. Activate wagon and a food unit within S of each other to move. If you use 6, resolve this ability a second time. Would be pretty powerful. For 6, you will activate 2 or 3 of your wagons to move to small distances. Really nice if you want to reposition them. Flails, or as we could say, a Cepi in Czech, but again, nobody cared. Melee, gain 2 attack dice, or 4 if your unit has no range weapons, or basic die. Pretty nice. For one basic die, you will take your warriors and or taborites and make poof, and they get 4 extra attack die. Well, pretty nice. Fervor of the Downtrodden. Rare activation. Activate unit of warriors or levies on foot for charge. It gains 3 bonus attack dice during the ensuing melee. You get for rare die, you get activation, free activation with 3 bonus attack dice. Why not? Why not actually? Houfnice, the only Czech word into battle board abilities. It's for 6. Activation reaction. Trigger this ability when enemy unit activates to shoot or charge. Before the activation is resolved, activate wagon to shoot at the activated unit. If the activated enemy unit takes at least one uncancelled hit, it must discard 2 attack dice from its shooting or melee pool. I think this is pretty powerful ability because Hussite wagons can shoot to L, so that's pretty good range for the table control. And you activate for, we could say, free shooting in their turn. You will give them your hits because it's still a shooting, or fatigue because wagons make fatigues when they shoot to enemy units. And if they take and cancel it, they then discard attack dice from the charge, which for a melee which doesn't really even started yet. I think it's pretty nice ability, to be honest. And then there is protection. Melee, rare die, gain 2 defense dice. If your unit is within S of wagon, gain 2 additional defense dice. Again, nice. You can clearly see that all the abilities are, built around the wagons, which is pretty flavorish because Hussites are, after all, they are known for their war wagons. So it's pretty working. There are some nice abilities, and to get the maximum of the Hussite battle board, you basically need to play them the historical way, which is, in my opinion, it's always great when the game rules, sort of force you to play the historical factions in a historical way. So I have no issues with the battle board. Again, if we look away from the name of abilities, I have no issues with them, and it seems pretty nice and, in my opinion, fun to play. So let's take a look at the, I would say, relevant specialists for the Hussite Wars, and then and the 2 legendary characters, and I will wrap it up because, as I see, I was talking about for 15 minutes, which is insane, to be honest. So, what is relevant? So we have mercenaries. Geonosis crossbowmen, not really relevant. Mounted crossbowmen, super non-relevant. English archers, not relevant. Arieban, not really relevant. Bidets, not really relevant. Handgunners, sort of relevant. So handgunners, 1 point, 8 figures, it's 8 warriors on foot, 1 Saga die, armor 3, aggression 1 and half as any shooting unit, and they are equipped with handguns. See below. So the unit has armor 3 against both melee and shooting attacks. It cannot close ranks. It's equipped with range weapons that use the following rules. Their shooting attack is range of L. The unit can never resolve 2 consecutive shooting activations in the same turn, so basically like a crossbowman. Each time unit shoots, the target of the shooting attack isn't exhausted. The first uncancelled hit inflicts a fatigue on the unit instead of becoming a casualty. The defending unit also suffer -1 penalty to defense dice. So basically, it's crossbow, which also gives a fatigue to the target of the shooting. That's pretty nice. To be honest, where I was expecting the handguns to sort of works just like the crossbow. The fact that they gave the fatigue inside the first casualty, it's pretty nice in my opinion. I take it. That's nice. And also there are skirmishers. Once during their turn, after having resolved a shooting activation, handgunners can activate through free move. This free activation generates fatigue normally. So handgunners seems pretty nice. Usable for Hussites. So again, brigands. Usable for the Hussites also is 8 warriors for 1 point. Classic warriors, armor for 1 aggression. They are lightly equipped, so they sort of ignore the uneven terrain. But as they are just a brigands, when they are encounter enemy with armor 5 or higher, so basically head guards, they are counting as being uh, with unarmed weapons, which I'm not really sure what does the ability do right now. But I think if it's something you have -1 for your attack, something like that, because there's not really really many of unarmed units in the saga. And they have misericord, which is sort of dagger, and each time they use enemy fatigues in melee, brigands also gain 2 attack dice, 2 defense dice, and lose the unarmed rule. Could be pretty situationally unit to use, but they could be really good at finishing the fatigue knights, because you get for 1 fatigue you get 2 attack dice, 2 defense dice, and you are not you non-unarmed anymore. And I imagine them in the historical way, like the brigands, some guys with just without armor, with daggers, sneaking around the battlefield and just finishing the wounded and fatigue knights. It's sort of flavorly. Not really sure if the wards the point, but why not? Instead of warriors, you can field 1 unit of these criminals. So this the something everybody is waiting for, the cannon. It's again for 1 point. It generates but no 0 saga dice. That's sort of interesting. You can replace 6 levies of 4 warriors with it. So basically it's half point for recruit, sort of. And it's cannon and crew. Armor 3/3, resilience 1, and 1 die for combat and special shooting. It moves against S like a wagon, cannot charge, and Infernal Fury. It activates like unit of levies, can never be activated to shoot more than once per turn, but it has unlimited range, and defenders can never use any shooting reaction abilities against the shooting attack from cannon. When cannon activates for shooting attack, don't resolve the usual step, instead roll 2d6 and check the table below. You get +1 bonus to the final result if the target unit has at least 6 figures. If you get double on your dice, the incident occurs, and we have table for it. And resolve the table, cannon take 1 fatigue. And if cannon is exhausted by shooting incident, it's removed as casualty. Interesting. Know that the +1 bonus applies to the total of 2d6 and not the resolve of single die. If there is cannon prevent a shooting incident, blah blah. Therefore it cannot prevent the cannon. So the +1 never helps you with the double result. So 2d6. 3 to 5, sounds and fury, no effects. 6 to 8, 1 fatigue, 9 to 10, fatigue and 1 casualty, 11 to 1 fatigue, then 2 casualties, and on the 12, it's 1 fatigue and then 3 casualties. That's pretty interesting, to be honest. So, if I understand it correctly, you will roll 2d6, and then you will consult the table. So, if you, for example, roll 10, the target unit takes 1 fatigue and 1 casualty. If you to roll 2 6s, it's 1 fatigue and 3 casualties. Well, not really bad, depending how good you are at rolling. And again, it could blow up. Okay, why not? Why not? Then there is a knight, which is sort of personal champion from the previous editions. It's basically one sort of hero. For 1 point you get knight with aggression 6 and armor 5, so basically mini hero. If he is dueling enemy heroes, he get +1 to attack dice. He has resilience 1, and when you recruited, you have 3 woes which he can take, or he must take. He could be Crusader. When he is outside the deployment area, it gains resilience 2. And if the knight is in opponent's deployment zone, his aggression is increased to 7 and resilience 3. So basically, you're really getting a new warlord from him. Never retreat. The knight gets 3 bonus defense dice each time it takes part in melee and suffer 1 fever fatigue at the end of the melee, as if it's the attacker. In addition, instead of resolving the normal withdrawal procedure and of the melee, the opponent must withdraw M. Again, interesting. And protect the weak. Once per turn, when the knight is within very small of friendly unit of warriors or levies involved in melee and has line of sight to the enemy unit involved, at the start of the melee you can choose for the knight to resolve the melee in your unit place as if he were directly engaged against the enemy unit. If the knight is removed as casualty, the unit it was protecting must withdraw. All 3 abilities seems to me pretty nice, and all the 3 was sort of pretty powerful. Not really sure if it's really worth 1 point, but it generates 1 Saga die, it has Resilience 1, and some pretty nice buffs if you choose the right woes. It could be situational. So, Savage Scots, not really suitable on the first side for the Hussite War, but you can sort of choose them to be the Savage Germans, and then you can go. Foreign Men at Arms. So 1 point you can take 6 warriors, but with armor 5, aggression 1. If they are on foot, they get 2 bonus attack and defense dice. And they have super heavy harnesses, so they have armor 5 and 6 against shooting. But on 4 armor on shooting if they are on horses. And if mounted, they activate to charge, they increase the aggression to 2 instead of 1 during the melee. Again, it could be useful. They are sort of, head guard-ish unit. Why not? Why not? City Militia is something which is more interesting, in my opinion. Is for 1 point, it's 12 levies. But they are equipped with both pavises and crossbows. And they have 1/4 aggression for both shooting and melee. But they are mixed units, so they have, sort of buff for the combat, or we could say more like combat. The armor, they are armor 6 for both melee and shooting, and they still have the pavises and crossbowmen as equipment, so they are still light cover for shooting, and they shoot their crossbows. And they have Wooden Walls ability, sheltered by the large shield they are carried. They can, shoot and be in behind the palisades. So once per turn, the shooting Melita can resolve his moves activation and then get a free shooting activation that generates fatigue. But you can line them. So basically, my editing software told me you are recording for 1 hour, and that's the cap for it. So he sort of ended it. But we are almost at the end, guys. So getting back to the city militia, I can see them as viable unit. For 1 point, you still get 12 figures with 1/3 aggression for wall melee and shooting with crossbows, but with armor 5 and palisades and the ability to move and shoot could be really nice. Then we get just pikemans and reboats. Pikemans not really usable for Hussite wars. Reboats for 1 point you get 16 units, 16 figure unit, which are 16 levies. They ignore the rules for being unit can be max 12 guys. They have armor 3, aggression 1/3 for attack, 1/2 for shooting. They have improvised projectiles and they are unarmed. And they have ability, their legs are worthless. With armor 3 against both melee and shooting attacks. Addition, a friendly unit within S don't suffer fatigue when units of reboats is destroyed. For Hussites, if you want to have this really huge mob of 16 civilians, you can throw somewhere and let them die. You can feel it, or some sort of non-combat, not soldiers. It's not combat, but not combat camp followers for the wagons. You can feel them, and that's all from the mercenaries or specialists, like they are called in the Age of Chivalry, and we can take a look at the legendary units or figures. I'm not really sure how it's called. Legends of Chivalry. Okay, so we have for Hussites we have Jan Žižka. So Jan Žižka is legendary warlord who replaces your warlord for 1 point. He can lead Hussite warband and has following characteristics. He generates 2 Saga dice. He has armor 5 for melee or shooting, or 5/4 if you mount him on horse, and aggression 4. He has bodyguard, determination, presence, pride, resilience 1. We obey. So abilities: Inventor or Wagenburg. Jan Žižka made strength out of his army apparent weaknesses, taking advantage of his personal knowledge of agriculture tools. Blah blah blah. Da, da, da. A warband led by Jan Žižka, the VS radius around Hussite wagons count as uneven terrain. So, sort of nice. Hussite wagons have large base, and VS from the base, everything is uneven terrain for the enemy. Nice. Leader of the Taborites. You can include any number of Taborites units as you want, and the Burning Fate ability becomes a basic ability. Could be pretty useful. Can really, with Žižka, you can really feel the armed, angry peasant mob of people revolutions like the communists would love to see. And it would be pretty great in the terms of playing. I can really see taking Žižka, 1-2 wagons, and the rest just Taborites and roll it off. But there is just sort of this ability for Žižka. That's the fact that he was sort of blind by the end of Hussite War, so his aggression is just 4 instead of 8. So he is not really like combat warlord, but just he's sort of there. So that's Žižka. And then for the Germans, we have the John of Luxembourg. the king of Bohemia. So the only German hero for the German faction is the guy from Luxembourg, which was, well, Czech king. And sort of, again, interesting choice from the studio Tomahawk. I'm really not sure why they chose to name the Holy Roman Empire as the Germans, because but whatever. But John the Blind is sort of, iconic figure of the chivalry era. So he has 2 Saga dice. Again, he upgrade Warlord for point. 8 aggression. Again, armor 5/5 or 5/4, depending if he's on horse, on foot. So into so there is the anecdote from the Battle of Crécy that he lead the cavalry charge where he was blind. So again, another blind hero, but for whatever reason, blind Janishishka is just with aggression 4, and the blind John is, with 8. But anyway, if you feel him, he's accompanied by 2 hair guards, and they sort of buff his resilience to 2 or 3, depending if they are both or just 1 alive. If you play the Age of Crusades, it's the life guards, life guards units ability. He's also blind, so when he's without his 2, bodyguards, he loses We Obey and Determination special rules. And understandable. And then there is a Paragon ability, which, in my opinion, is something which was, lost in translation from the French, because John was Paragon of knightly kings, driven by chivalric and Christian ideals. When he's attacker in melee against an enemy hero or Redguard unit, and he triggers a Saga ability, he can take a fatigue. If he does, he doesn't need to discard a fatigue from the enemy unit to resolve the ability's effects. I don't really sure what does it mean, because if I understand it correctly, when you are fighting enemy hero on Head Guard and he trigger Saga ability, he can take a fatigue. If he does, he doesn't need to discard a fatigue from enemy unit to resolve the ability's effects. I'm not really sure what does it do. Really don't know. But again, if it's forgive the Paragon, and I think there is he can take a fatigue. I mean, he may. He can take. Not really sure. But anyway, John the Blind is basically Age of Crusade warlord with life guards. And that's it. That's it. That was the Age of Chivalry. It's more than 1 hour long video. Sorry. But if you want to, play the Hussite War using Age of Chivalry, I think this video could and should be helpful to you. On the first side, you can clearly see that I'm not really super happy with it. But, again, the book was released last week. I actually really don't have time to, play it and see how it will work. And that's it. Well, if you watch the full hour, congratulations, guys. And hopefully I will see you on the next one. I'm exhausted same way as you are. Bye, guys.